Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we're talking about everyone's least favorite left-wing propagandists, NowThis News, who have really been stepping up their Facebook game lately. Sure, they have a YouTube channel with over 1 million followers called NowThis World, but they can barely crack 100,000 views per video there. Even my channel gets more views than them most of the time, and I've got less than a quarter of their subscriber base. This is because, for one, I'm pretty awesome and my videos kick ass, and two, more importantly, NowThis sucks donkey balls. They also didn't actually grow their YouTube channel themselves. NowThis bought the Seeker Daily channel. Then they promptly stopped posting videos for a while, and then after a break, they came back rebranding the channel as NowThis World. A pretty gay move if you ask me. I guess NowThis couldn't cut it on their own merit, so they decided to buy their way in here in order to push their radical left-wing, Democrat, socialist, and communist ideologies. Last time we covered NowThis, it was a few weeks back when they had a Jewish guy on pretending to be white, so he could tell us not to worry about all the anti-white hatred going on out there. This was pretty ironic since that video itself was anti-white, and it was trying to minimize the open white racism the left has been pushing a lot lately. And well, this time, NowThis is doing the same kind of thing but in reverse. Their video is called "The United States is one of the most dangerous countries for women," which is clearly not true, so this time, NowThis is saying a group is in trouble when they're really not, probably to push its pro-women and anti-male agendas. Let's go ahead and take a look at the video itself and see what's going on. Well, I gotta say right out the gate, I really don't trust this research. This is an opinion survey that's not based on facts or data at all. It's based on the opinion of these 548 women's rights experts, whatever that means. Sounds like they asked a bunch of feminists, so of course they tried to get America on this list. But I doubt anyone in their right mind would put the US at the top of that list if they were being honest, and they knew what was going on in the world. America, of course, is a great place for women, and for men for that matter, but especially women. This is why we have thousands of illegal immigrants trying to sneak into our country every day, because the US is one of the best places to live in the world. And that's why, even despite the left-wing spin on this, we still were only ranked the 10th worst country. That's right, even though NowThis tries to spin this in the title, saying the United States is one of the most dangerous countries for women, in actuality, when you click on the video, it immediately says we're number 10 on the list, barely in the top 10. And if we're up to me, we wouldn't even be that high at all. I can name a dozen countries right now that would be worse for women, so don't test me. Okay, you know what? Fine. How about this? Let's start with some violent dictatorships like North Korea and Saudi Arabia. Then let's go with countries with lots of Muslims, whose religion treats women as second-class citizens, of course. Countries like India, which was already mentioned. And I know someone's going to comment that that's not a Muslim country, they're actually Hindu, but guess what? India has a shitload of Muslims. Then there's also Algeria, Malaysia, Iran, Turkey, Indonesia, Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Afghanistan, Yemen, Pakistan, Iraq. I could keep going, but that's already 15 countries that are clearly worse for women than the US. And I'm just getting started. Let's go ahead and throw some African countries in there for good measure. There, things are much worse for women considering the tribal legacies, the terrible patriarchal leaders, and, of course, the rampant amounts of rape in places like Central African Republic, Congo, Sudan, Libya, and let's not forget, Niger. Now that's 20 countries that are obviously worse for women than the United States. Hell, they're worse for anyone when you think about it. So I really see no reason for America to be on this top 10 list at all, let alone being a highlight by NowThis for their video. They obviously have an agenda here, and this time, they're trying to make America look sexist and dangerous for women, when it's really not. Well, yeah, of course a movement like Me Too would have an effect on how the world views sexism in America. Me Too involved dozens of Hollywood creeps getting busted for manipulating and sexually assaulting women for years. Harvey Weinstein, Kevin Spacey, Bill Cosby, all of these dark abuse stories have been coming to the forefront of the media a lot in the past year, especially. But even so, this doesn't mean the US is one of the most dangerous countries for women. This means Hollywood is. And despite their reach and popularity, the US entertainment industry isn't a whole country. Not at all. Think about it. There's not Me Too stories coming out of the farming industry or out of the medical or science fields. It's Hollywood that's the rat here, and unfortunately, they get the best press, so people think it's all over. That brings me to what we're really talking about today. What we're talking about here is the perception of sexism, a perception coming from an international community of women's rights experts who sound like they're biased as hell to me, and they sound like they're more heavily influenced by CNN and the mainstream media than they are by actual facts and numbers. They think there's more sexism in the United States because there's more stories about us in the news, and there's more reporting reports online about Hollywood creepers and such. We try to sell that we are a country of freedom and also of safety, but there are a lot of people in our country who are not safe, and victims of sexual assault and domestic violence are certainly in that group. Well, I feel for you and your case, and I'm going to assume NowThis is taking liberties with your quote here. They're trying to use a real sex assault survivor to emotionally manipulate people, which is a pretty disgusting attempt at exploiting her terrible backstory. Regardless, Abby isn't all wrong here either. There are a lot of people in our country who are not very safe, and that's because there's a lot of people in this country, period. The police and the government just can't protect everyone, not for every minute of every day. Now, that's not to say we shouldn't try to do better. We should try and get zero sex assaults and zero crimes everywhere, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. It's just not reasonable. In the meantime, though, the US still is one of the safer countries in the world, much safer for men and women than most of the countries. We're certainly not in the top 10 of the most dangerous ones, that's for sure, but I will also admit that the US isn't the safest one either. We're just not built the way some of the safest countries are, like say Iceland, which is always on the top of the list of safest and best places to live. And that's because of Iceland's main features, which make it much easier to keep safe. Iceland is small, isolated, and homogeneous. Three things which the United States isn't. We are a gigantic, vast nation with over 300 million people. Iceland is a small island nation with 300,000. The US shares a border with Canada to the north and Mexico to the south, both of which countries have millions and millions of people themselves, not to mention their international hubs which funnel people in from other countries around the world. Iceland, on the other hand, shares no borders with anyone. They're surrounded by water for miles and miles. Finally, this brings me to the homogeneity, or homogeneity, however you say it. This word means the quality or state of being all the same, or all of the same kind. And historically, and according to records and research, the more homogeneous a nation's population is, the less fighting and conflict there will be there, and crime. This is another strength of Iceland. They are extremely homogeneous, with 93% of its residents being Icelandic citizens, mostly of white Norwegian descent. They're also extremely unified culturally, with 71% belonging to the state church, for example. This homogeny means people get along better there. They're more similar and less likely to have conflict and strife, and thus, it's much less dangerous there. The United States, on the other hand, is not very homogeneous at all, especially not nowadays with it being only 63% white, 13% black, and so on. It's very divided. The US is a giant melting pot of different cultures and beliefs, and while diversity is championed by some as being preferential, and it certainly has some benefits you can't deny, like bringing in the best parts of all cultures, but at the same time, there is a downside. There is a downside to multiculturalism. Mixing together all the different races, ethnicities, and creeds into one place certainly has a chance to cause more conflict, more fighting, and racism, over the years especially, and this is what's happened in the United States. And combine this with our large population, our large landmass, and giant borders with Mexico and Canada, and these are the reasons why the US isn't exactly the safest country in the world. It's a great country and it's pretty safe, and it has lots of upsides too, like our big businesses, technology, our republic, and our culture, but that all comes at a price, which in this case is it's going to be a bit more dangerous than somewhere like Iceland. But do you really want to live in Iceland anyway? That's a one-horse town if you ask me. Sure, you would be safer and the country is beautiful there, but it's not perfect either. It's very isolated, it's small, and there's not many people there either. Not many options for friends, dating, or family, or all that, or going out, or places to see either. It would be like living in one of the smaller US states, but not being connected to the rest of the country or the continent. Living in Iceland, you'd be stuck out in the ocean alone and secluded, miles and miles away from Europe or Greenland, its closest neighbors. And while some might like that, I know that's certainly not for me very much at all. People watch the US, they watch our elections, they watch our media coverage, they watch our celebrity violence against women cases. The perception is understandable, but not based on reality. Hey, that's pretty much what I said before. Well put, Cindy. What's really going on here is the world has perceptions of sexism in the US, which is based on the fear-mongering in the media. A lot of this has to do with hack companies like CNN, bashing Trump and falsely accusing him of sexism day in and day out. It's not true though. Our president loves women. He cherishes the ones in his family, and he hires many other talented women into his administration, like Sarah Huckabee Sanders, for example. But CNN and MSNBC and creepy losers like Jimmy Kimmel are too busy saying Trump is a sexist pig because he admitted to having sex with a woman once on an Access Hollywood videotape almost a decade ago. And this is the kind of stuff that makes it seem like it's dangerous for women here. Fake news stories like that and the real life stories of Me Too abuse going around in Hollywood. That's terrible, and I hate to say it like this, but 3 women murdered a day in a country of 325 million really isn't that much. It should be 0, sure, and we could strive for that, but let's not pretend like 3 a day is a lot either, not at our size. I think I listed all of those most dangerous countries already, with an additional 10 more dangerous than the US too. And I could do more. I'm sure you could think of a few right now, but I think you all get the point already. The US should have never been on the list of the most dangerous places for women. It should be on the list for the least dangerous. Women have equal rights here, clearly, and they have a voice, opportunities, and they even get special treatment as well. Women get better sentencing and preferential treatment in all court cases, for example, like how they always get the kids and a guy's money in a divorce. And women teachers always get away with sexually abusing their students. While guys get jailed and gang raped for it, women usually get off pretty much scot-free. And what about government support, which is also much better for women? They get more welfare, they get their own shelters and handouts, free healthcare and abortions, you name it. There's no men's shelters out there, and there's no Planned Parenthood for men either. So with all that said, I really don't see what NowThis is talking about here. The US is a great place to be a woman, one of the best even. India has shown utter disregard and disrespect for women. Rape, marital rapes, sexual assault, and harassment, female infanticide has gone unabated. Sounds completely terrible and awful. Which begs the question, why the hell isn't this video's title about India then? They're the ones going up on this list from 4 to number 1. This video should have been titled, India is one of the most dangerous countries for women, not the United States. The US is just a somewhat dangerous nation because it's so big and has such a mix of everyone here. It's not especially dangerous for women though, but India sure is. But I guess NowThis didn't think mentioning them in the title would spark enough interest. No, NowThis wanted to use this bogus poll based on opinion and perception in order to bash America publicly and shame us. So make no mistake guys, NowThis is anti-American. They're radical leftists who can't stand this country, and they hate the white majority here, whose ancestors helped found and build us and make us this great nation. Yeah, no Latin American countries made the list because they're not particularly dangerous for women. They're just really dangerous for everyone. And now that I think of it, I kind of resent this whole premise. I mean, it's interesting and important to know what countries are worse for women so we can fix them, but we should really worry about if they're dangerous for men too, or for all people. And the fact that the US made this top 10 here really shows how biased and retarded this little survey was. In the end, we've seen another monstrosity from NowThis here, which, surprise, surprise, they're trying to spin into an anti-American message. In truth, the US is not one of the most dangerous places for women. It's far from it, and NowThis knows this, but they have to continue to spread their left-wing propaganda, I guess. This time, instead of insisting there's nothing for white people to worry about when there clearly is, well, now NowThis is saying there's a lot for women to worry about here, when there really isn't. What do you guys think? Is the US one of the most dangerous countries for women? Should we be taking an opinion poll like this seriously in the first place? And what do you think about India being the worst place for women in the world? Comment your thoughts and everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. See y'all next time.